Welcome to byProduct Live, where we unbox everything SaaS and product. We talk with experts and leaders in SaaS and product to understand their approach to leadership and ways of working, to share their knowledge and understanding. byProduct Live is brought to you in partnership with AmSource. AmSource are a specialist talent solutions business to startup and scaling tech businesses globally. byProduct Live, we're talking with Ilya Sakharov. Ilya is CTO at Codility, the leading platform for assessing and advancing technical skills. Previous to Codility, Ilya was Director of Engineering at Getir, the ultra-fast grocery delivery platform, and HelloFresh. Ilya has a wide experience scaling engineering teams for high-growth products. In his spare time, Ilya tries to dedicate some attention to playing his Xbox a little bit, reading and watching some technology or horror TV series. And today we're going to be discussing the role of the CTO. Its ideal positioning in the C-suite of a tech company and some of the less obvious responsibilities that come with it. Ilya, welcome to the show today. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much, Andrew, and thank you for having me. Really happy to be here today.
Great stuff. So I'm really looking forward to today's discussion. So let's dive straight in. So everybody, of course, knows the role of the CTO. But in your opinion, where do you think that the CTO should always operate?
Yeah, so CTO is, as the name suggests, is the member of the executive leadership team of the organization. And I think this is exactly where the first team of that individual lies. So operationally, CTO is an equal member of the executive leadership team and is a partner and a friend and a support and also maybe sometimes an opponent to the members of the executive team. And in many cases, the definition of the team is not necessarily well defined. And when you ask some of the people, what is your team, they sometimes point to the organization they lead. And I strongly believe that executive team is the first team of the CTO.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess there are companies at different stages of evolution. Do you think this is always the same for all companies?
No, absolutely not. And I think we're not talking about enterprises here, right? Enterprises or large organizations have a completely different definition of CTOs. They have CTO office, they have multiple CTOs for different domains. It's a different type of role. But even with the smaller organizations, there are different types of companies in which CTO holds a bit of a different role. There are at least four types of organizations that I believe are worthy of looking at and defined by tech-enabled, tech-driven, pure tech, and deep tech. There's, of course, a lot of articles about how to define those, but I'm simplifying this a lot in my head. So tech enables is something that the tech is not their USP, and they use tech only internally for providing different type of USP. I think banks are type of that company. Tech driven is where software is as a part of the product that they deliver. And this is, for example, all the smartphone manufacturers, right? I mean, smartphone without the software is a brick. Right?
Of course.
Or even EV, right? The Teslas and such. So, but they are not really software companies. Every company today is a technology company, right? But technology on a different levels. And pure tech is a company that its USP is SaaS products. All the SaaS product companies are pure tech companies. Of course, there's the deep tech, and we're talking about some really advanced algorithmic stuff and really, really cosmic, fascinating magic like quantum computing and everything. But pure tech is the SaaS companies, and I think the CTO has a very prevalent role in those companies.
Yeah, and if we look at, I guess, the different stages of business, so what would the difference be between a CTO in a smaller startup and a larger enterprise? How would they differ?
So there was some saying, I don't remember exactly what the book was, but every company needs go through 7 stages, and each stage requires a different CEO. So it's very common to speak about the CEO and the CFO as the head of the company. And I think this is where the problem lies, because CTO is an equal member and should take that place at that table, especially in pure tech and deep tech companies. But stages are also very important. In many cases, I believe that early stage startups are making a fundamental mistake of assigning the CTO title too early. Because they actually need a lead developer. They need a magician that will hack their software and their product into this version 0.7 or something to really validate the product market fit. Right, but CTO, when you name that role as a CTO, you imply not only the potential expansion with the company, because this is how it's usually been sold, right? You have the right, you will have the opportunity to build your organization, and you will rise with us. But I believe that CTO responsibilities are being ignored in this case, because when you really go for that particular developer, for that coding guru ninja, right, that will actually make and lead the group of talented people to craft that first thing that you have, most of those people do not have the acumen, or even, I would say, the will and desire to become the CTO. And they will levitate back to the coding. They will levitate to solving very complex technical problems, even if the organization grows and when the organization grows, right? So practically they will distance themselves from the new responsibilities that the title, the position of CTO introduces. And this kind of perpetuates and even solidifies this separation between CFO, CEO, who are the leading spearhead of the company, who are in touch with investors, they are in touch with the board of directors, they are in touch with all the relationship with partners and everything. They own the money, right? And CTO is perceived as, I would say, an execution machine, right? So there is an engineering, it's a machine that produces whatever the business needs, right? And in many cases, when I speak with people in the industry, there's this common sense that the CEO CFO pair, this power couple, are usually not very happy with how engineering operates.
Right. Okay.
I've heard statements like, "We are held hostage by engineering."
Right.
I heard statements that they're always late. They think that what we need will take months to deliver, right? They cannot commit to anything. All those things show me the gap in communication and that interaction between deep interaction between members of the executive team, and that even deepens more that gap between the power couple, as I mentioned, and the CTO, which I think is needs to be bridged, especially in pure tech companies where software is everything.
Yes, of course. And I guess with different stages of business, and you talked about the lead engineer, it comes down to skill set as well, right? Because somebody who's a lead engineer doesn't necessarily have the strategic experience to sit on an operational board right away. So I think, as you've said, it's about that development in skill set, but that won't always happen to a lead engineer, and it's not necessarily in their makeup to be able to develop to that. Would that be right?
Yes, and I'm not saying that people cannot learn. People can, right? And people can rise. And there is a hidden CTO in that lead developer with the right desire and ambition and ability to learn and absorb and expose themselves to those novel interactions, and let's call them APIs with other with other functions. People can develop themselves into this role, definitely. The problem is that they're not necessarily want to, and there's something that's worth repeating. So there is this book, Manager's Path. I think everybody in the industry is quite aware of it, but I cannot stop recommending this to people. And it's really kind of chapter based on different transitions between developer to lead, from lead to manager, from manager to director, from director to VP and CTO. And in many cases, people want to have passion for what they do. And that's what propels them. That's what feeds them, right? That's what makes them wake up. in the morning with a good feeling. And there is a big difference between what CTO does and what a lead developer does, or even the engineering manager does. And in many cases, people do not want to take this road, and this is okay.
Yeah. But I think sometimes as well, people think they want to, but actually when they get there and realize what it involves, they realize that it's probably not for them. And I think we've both probably seen that a lot in different organizations.
Oh, absolutely. And this is why I think even in early stages, when the kind of the most common transition is between developer to the manager, needs to be accompanied by very thorough training, and even maybe a period in which a person has the right to regret. We had this in HelloFresh, and it was like an engineering manager in training for several months. And people could say, okay, you know what? I tried this. This is not for me. I'm going back. And no grudge, right? But in many cases, if you are promoted or if you're raising your hand and taking that position because nobody else is there, or you're deemed to be, with potential, and then you discover this is not what you want to do for the rest of your life, the only way usually for those people is out of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we just bring the conversation back towards that relationship between CEO, CFO, and CTO, I think one of the things that's interesting is the influence that the CTO can obviously have on the wider leadership team and how that can help the business. So where have you seen where, as an engineering leader, you've been able to influence, or where you may have seen that in other organizations?
Yeah, so I think it's a good segue from the previous conversation, because this gap that is perpetuated by both the power couple of the CEO, CFO, and the CTO that doesn't want to do anything but engineering, this is where the influence needs to be built. And I'll explain on this. This opinion about engineering holding the business hostage, and this is like an extreme expression, of course, it's not happening like 99% of the time. But it comes from misunderstanding. It comes from misunderstanding of the rest of the executive suite of how engineering works, of how software is being developed, on modern engineering practices that actually describe engineering process as a creative, iterative process. Because we don't really know in engineering, if we are creating something novel, right? Not maintenance, but creating something novel, we don't really know what obstacles we're going to hit, right? So that illusion of estimation is hindering the relationship. And as Kent Beck said, we only know what work needs to be done when we start doing it, right? And I wholeheartedly believe in it, because of this is a creative process based on trial and error. So misunderstanding of how software development logistics, the SDLC, happens. What does cloud computing means, right? What is CI/CD, for example? Those levels of understanding, if they do not exist in other pieces of executive leadership team, there is the unspoken, in many cases, mismatch of expectations. So I think it is our job as engineering leaders to make sure that we bridge that gap. So we can't really come to the other executives and tell them, okay, you need to take those basic courses in cloud computing, right? Or you need to understand what cybersecurity is, and here is the CISSP or whatever certification you need to come through, right? No, this doesn't work like that. Okay, because they have their own domain in which they are masters. CFO is one of the most complicated domains ever with an executive team. And we can't dump those things on them. Cognitive load is going to be unimaginable. So I think what we need to do is to help those people to ramp up on those domains to the level in which the conversation between us will become more productive and expectations will be set in reality. And that will remove the disappointment and frustration, because both of those, disappointment and frustration, coming from mismatching expectations. And it's not just job, it's psychology. So But also our demand for them to ramp up on what we in engineering are doing cannot be one-sided. I strongly believe that
because this has got to work both ways,
absolutely.
right?
As I mentioned before, this is the first team. This is the team in which we need to support each other, and together we are steering the company into the brighter future. And we make decisions together. Sometimes we disagree. Sometimes we disagree and commit. Sometimes we fight on something and we come up with a synthesis, right? And this is great. This is how teams should operate.
Yeah.
But asking other people to learn what's yours just to make sure that you're comfortable speaking in your language is not only not fair, but it's also unproductive. I strongly believe that the modern CTO, the modern engineering leader, should be versed in all other functions represented in executive leadership team. We are all sales. We are all marketing. We are all finances. And I think this genuine interest in what, for example, CFO is doing will help an engineering leader to make their case better. They will understand the additional power dynamics of things they didn't even know exist unless they actually asked or read or had this conversation with the CFO in which they were explained, okay, there is this relationship with the investor, there is this relationship with board of directors, there is this relationship with the bank, and making claims about salary updates and more budget that is needed or less budget that is needed is going to look absolutely different. It would be great for a CFO to understand what FinOps is, for example, right? Because cloud computing can go out of control immediately. Costs for infrastructure. We've seen companies going down.
Yeah.
What was the last one with the AI that they paid 99 million that they couldn't pay? So they went under. So 99 million for infrastructure costs for training their models. They couldn't pay it. So understanding how cloud computing works and how the bills in your AWS, GCP, Azure work is extremely important for the CFO, but it is on us to explain it to them.
To explain it to them,
Right.
Yeah.
So it is.
I guess much of this is much like being a happy marriage. You've got to keep talking to each other and know when to concede.
Absolutely. I mean, you're spot on, right? I mean, relationship in teams are equal to relationships, in all other areas of our life, right? So it's the same patterns, the same dynamics. So yes, it is like a healthy relationship between several individuals that is based on communication, openness, transparency, and ramping up each other on the point of view of each other, which brings understanding of language, of vocabulary, of concepts, and abilities and disabilities, or I would say capabilities and lack of such in different areas. Because I can come to a CFO with a request that doesn't make sense, but if I don't understand that it doesn't make sense, I will be frustrated, right? So I need to understand what they do and how they operate, so I will know that my request actually doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think what I've taken from this conversation is that the more aligned everybody is, then the more successful the business should be, the happier everybody will be working together. So as we bring the conversation to a close, Ilya, it's been really interesting this morning. What would you say the 3 key takeaways for our listeners to take away today?
So closing with your remark, yes, alignment, cohesion, and mutual understanding that we are going towards the same goal, and it's not engineering against finances. It's not finances against marketing, right? The key takeaways, I would say that first of all, be careful assigning the CTO too early to your startup, because it comes with responsibilities that the person you give this title to might not want to pursue or might not be able. Another takeaway is, in order to be an equal first-class exec together with the CEO and CFO and have that meaningful seat at the table, you need to do 2 things. 1, ramp up on each domain represented by the ELT, executive leadership team, to make sure you understand how they operate. And second, help them to ramp up on your domain. You will be appreciated for it, and the alignment and cohesion that you will achieve will be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. That's really good conversation today, Ilya, and I'm sure our listeners will take away a lot from that. Thank you very much for taking the time, and we'll speak to you soon.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.